Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing Elsbeth Season 2, Episode 16. So before I get into the review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes to my channel, likes my videos, leaves me comments. I appreciate you so much. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, you can leave them below. So, getting into this episode, it was definitely different because you kind of see Elsbeth work with a different detective, right? Which we kind of knew was going to happen. And it's Detective Edwards, which is another woman detective, which we've seen on previous episodes. So I like her. I just like her personality because she's not all like nice and sweet, kind of like Kayla was with Elsbeth, which I love. I love their friendship, but I like Edwards too. She is a great detective, and I kind of like that. They're giving her more screen time to be with Elsbeth. So I know we've kind of talked about that in the past episodes, like who's going to be the regular person with Elsbeth now that Kayla is her own detective and has her own cases. Honestly, I don't think she's going to be with Edwards every time. I just feel like this show is going to team up Elsbeth with different detectives. But I like Detective Edwards. I think they work well together. So it starts out with the murder, obviously, and his name is Axel. He's a personal trainer, and he dies in a hot tub. And it starts out with him, and he's kind of with this woman. They're very flirtatious, and then you see another woman there, and I'm like, okay, are they all a couple? Is it like, what's the dynamic here? So I learned a new word, throuple. I might not be saying that right. Judge free zone. So if I'm not saying it right, no judgment, right? Totally judge free. But Taylor is part of the couple. So you find out Axel is married to Freya, and she's an author. She writes a book on decluttering. So she talks about having, I think, 44 possessions. So you can see the house is very clean and very modern, and doesn't have a lot of possessions, right? Because she's an author, and that's what she writes about, is the world of decluttering and not having all of that. So you find out Taylor is part of this couple. So Axel and Freda are married, and they brought Taylor in, and so they're called a throuple. And she kind of schedules, you see them in like a family meeting, and they have a schedule. And so Taylor kind of spends time with Freya, and then she spends time with Axel. I'm assuming they spend time, all three of them, but I didn't really get that feel. More of, she kind of spends time with each one. So kind of like an open marriage, except the person they're kind of with, so to speak. So I guess it's kind of a different take on an open marriage. I know an open marriage means you can sleep with other people, but this, I think, is more you're just sleeping with this person. So like Taylor is what they call a throuple, and Taylor seems like a really nice person. She likes both of them, and they kind of have a schedule, and it seems to be working for them. Like I say, judge free zone. If it works for you, to each his own. So, just like every Elsbeth episode, you see who does it. And she puts his hair in the drain in the hot tub. And I guess he gets his hair stuck because Axel has longer hair for a man. And the emergency door, the cover of the hot tub closes, and he basically drowns. So, you see at the very beginning that Elsbeth sees Kayla, and she's on another case. So then you find out that she's with Detective Edwards, which I mentioned earlier. And they find out his record. Like Axel has actually been in the urgent care like a dozen times in the last year. So Edwards is like, look, he's either the unluckiest person in the world, or somebody's trying to kill him, and hasn't been successful yet because he's had a lot of injuries. And every time he's gone to urgent care, it's always been Taylor, right? His wife never accompanies him. You find out later that she's kind of I don't want to say a germaphobe because I don't think she is. I just think she doesn't like hospitals. So I think, she wants Taylor to go because she doesn't want to be in that environment. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I know a lot of people who, don't like to go in funeral homes, don't like to go in hospitals or nursing homes. So I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. I mean, if Axel's in a relationship with his wife, Freda, and Taylor, I mean, either one could accompany him, but it is odd that he has so many accidents, so to speak, in such a short amount of time. So then you're thinking, was somebody trying to kill him prior to that? So it's definitely going to be interesting because Taylor obviously doesn't think Freda did it because she's still with her, right? But then Taylor breaks up with Freda. She basically says, "Look, I don't want to be in a couple. I want to be in a trouble. That's kind of what I go for. It makes me nervous when it's just one on one. I don't like to be in a relationship with just one person. I want to be in a relationship with two people. That's what I'm used to." So I think that throws Freda off because I feel like she really, really cares for Taylor, and Taylor was spending a lot of time with her ex-husband, and you can kind of see the way Freda would watch Taylor and Axel, and you can kind of tell she was jealous. So I think she was kind of taken back when Taylor was like, "Look, I'm sad Axel is dead, but I can't be in a one-on-one relationship. I need to break up." And then Freda's like, "Let's bring somebody else in." And Taylor's like, "You're okay with that?" Because remember, that's the kind of situation she likes to be in. So if Freda is open to bringing somebody in the relationship, then Taylor will stay, is kind of the feel that you got. However, when they start interviewing people on the dating app, she kind of closes up. So I feel like Taylor is kind of separating herself from Freda. I don't know if she suspects it. I don't think she does. I just think it seems awkward for her. But Freda, you can tell, really wants to stay in that relationship with Taylor, almost like she killed her husband to stay with Taylor. So I think Taylor wanting to leave kind of threw her off. But the hot tub company comes out and speaks with the captain and the detectives and Elsbeth. And basically, it's all about insurance and liability. So the insurance company for the hot tub is like, "Hey, we have an emergency switch. You need to have that on." And the emergency switch is at the very bottom of the hot tub in the corner. There is no way, if you're in the hot tub, that you can get all the way out and press that switch. But Freda was like, "It's an eyesore. Of course I put it in the bottom corner." And the hot tub people are like, "But that's insane. There's no way you can hit it if you're in an emergency. We're not liable. That's not our fault." And Elsbeth is like, "But why did the case, the top of the hotbed, why did the lid close?" So you find out they kind of have like a moving vacuum. I call it a Roomba. They call it some other name in the show. But he's moving around. And since the emergency button for the hot tub is on the very bottom, the vacuum or moving cleaning machine hits the button. So you can kind of see like how Freda did it, right? She clogged the drain and then she turned on her, cleaning machine, and he pressed the emergency button, and that kind of what closed the lid to the hot tub, and he drowned. So you kind of see how she did it, and you don't really know why. Like I say, I just can kind of tell from the beginning that she was really jealous of her husband with Taylor. Even though she was welcoming to having the three people in the relationship. So, I mean, it's one thing if your husband is cheating on somebody and you don't know, but if you're welcoming that person into your relationship, I don't know why you would be jealous of them because you're having time away. And you see Taylor, in a hotel room with Frida while they have their togetherness. So I never really understood that. I think the reason for the murder was jealousy, that she really loved Taylor and wanted her all to herself. But I don't know. I mean, to me, I was like, you knew the situation, but, and Elsbeth was interesting because, every time you see Elsbeth, she always has alone time with the killer or the person she thinks did it. Now, Edwards thinks Taylor did it. So Edwards wants to bring Taylor in for questioning, but Elsbeth thinks Freda did it, the wife. So I like that they kind of have opposing views because Edward is a great detective, but she goes off of her instincts too. So I kind of like that they butt heads a little bit because it just adds more dynamic to the show. It was really a good episode with seeing more of Detective Edwards. But Elsbeth goes to see Freda, and of course, she wrote this, book on decluttering, and Elsbeth has all of her totes and her bags. So she's like, okay, I can't take it anymore. We're going to declutter. We're going to qualify. She has bins, quantity, and quantity. And she's going through everything, and I feel like you see a scene that Elsbeth is putting stuff in her totes. So I feel like she did it on purpose, right? Because she knew it was going to drive Freda nuts. And it turned out she had 67 items or something like that. So you kind of see this scene while they're going through everything. And you don't really know why she's doing it, but Elsbeth, she's always meeting with the person she thinks is the killer and getting information, right? And they go through the financials and they do see something called self. And that's all it's listed as. And Freda is a very organized person, right? She's an author of a declutter book. She says everybody can only have 44, items. And if you get a new item, you need to take away a new item. So they're like, what is this self? Is it self-care, self-help? And I first thought self-storage because they're emphasizing her decluttering thing and the whole scene with Elsbeth and taking all of her items and sorting them and throwing them away, and I'm like, yeah, she's got a self-storage. Like, that was just my gut, and it turns out to be true. They find out at the end that she has a self-storage. They follow her when she discards her clients' items. And that's where they find the evidence. She bragged about one of her clients that was like a millionaire and some of the stuff that they threw away. And they usually will give it to her to discard because they don't want to just throw it away. So she actually keeps all of the stuff that her clients throw away according to, what she tells them they need to do, declutter. So it's definitely ironic, right, that she has a secret storage space and she keeps everything that she's telling her clients to get rid of. And they found arsenic in one of the items that she took from one of her other clients. So because when they tested the hair in the drain, they found out there was arsenic in it. So they're like, okay, somebody's been trying to kill him slowly. And they find out it was Freda. So, they definitely get that. Obviously, they're able to get evidence on her. So it's an interesting case. Like I say, it was interesting for me because I've never heard that term. But, I learn something new every day. So I definitely like the way, Elsbeth can kind of tell just by looking at the wife or, whoever the suspect is. So it was interesting. You're like, yep, that's the moment Elsbeth figured out it was Freda. But it was definitely an interesting case. One of the parts that I liked in the end is, oh, I'm sorry, I'm checking my notes, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yes, they find out that's what it was. What I liked at the end was everybody seems to, even though Freda gets arrested and Axel is killed, obviously that's not a good outcome for them. But in the end, they play music, and the music that they play, I think I actually wrote this down because it was so perfect. They play Sonny and Cher, I Got You, Babe, which is such a classic song. I mean, it just goes with so much stuff. So they're playing that, and they see Taylor in the coffee shop. And before I say this, Taylor was kind of shook up, right? Because she's dating Axel and Freda. So she was really shook up over Axel's death. And then finding out that Freda did it really kind of shook her up. So I was like, oh, I hope she's going to be okay because that's a lot. So you see Taylor in the coffee shop and she's just sitting there, and you see a couple sitting at the other table and they're kind of looking at her, and they hold up a sign like, will you join us? So she smiles and you're like, okay, Taylor found a new couple. She's happy, right? Because she said she's not happy one on one. She wants to make sure it's a couple. So this is a happy ending for her, right? And then you do see Elsbeth's son for a little bit in the episode. He's walking Gonzo, Elsbeth's dog, but he has doubts about his relationship with Roy. And you've seen that in past episodes. Elsbeth is such good friends with Roy. Teddy's a little thrown off by it. Like, look, my boyfriend and my mom are like great friends. Like, this is kind of weird. And Elspeth says, you just need to decide if you really want to stay with them. So part of that is he stays with him. So that's kind of a happy ending for Teddy. Teddy, says to Roy, I'm committed to you. I'm not going to go back and forth. Like, we're going to move forward in our relationship. And Kayla has a birthday coming up. And you see Elsbeth kind of pull over aside the Emmy, because remember, that's Kayla's roommate, and he's adorable. He's such a great guy and good looking, and he's great for Kayla. So Elsbeth is like, her birthday's coming up. Like, do you have any ideas? I got some gift ideas for you. And then in the end, she kind of says, I'm going to let you decide. And I think Elsbeth realizes like she's overstepping. And so in the end, you see Kayla and the Emmy and her birthday, and they kind of kiss and go up the stairs to go to the bedroom. So you're like, okay, that's a happy ending for them. And so, at the end, you're seeing you're hearing Sonny and Cher, I got you, babe. You're seeing Taylor find a couple, so she's happy. You see Teddy decide to stay with Roy, so he's happy. You see Kayla, kissing the Emmy, her roommate, so they're happy. And Elsbeth is going through the stuff, because remember, she kind of went to Freya, and Freya said, I'm going to throw away all this stuff. Well, they arrest her at the storage building, right? So she brought all of her stuff back. So you see Elsbeth in her apartment, like finding all of her stuff that she threw away, that to declutter. So she's happy, putting in her little, Statue of Liberty hat and all that stuff. So she's kind of happy. And I'm like, okay, it's going to end with Elsbeth going through all of her stuff. But then she gets a little click on her computer, and it's like FaceTime, and it's her friend from Scotland. So I'm like, yay. So Elsbeth is still seeing or talking or dating, the gentleman from Scotland. And I loved him in that episode. That was a couple episodes back. So I'm glad that she's still talking to him, because they're so cute together. And I know it's long distance, but that just made me happy to see Elsbeth, because like I say, everybody was kind of getting their happy ending, and you see Elsbeth happy because she got all of her stuff back, but she had her love interest too. They showed her computer pop up, and you see his face, so it was him, and they're FaceTiming, and that's kind of how it ends. So I love happy endings. I love that they played that song, because they kind of showed all of the kind of couples, everybody kind of having their happy ending, which I'm always a sucker for. I love the Hallmark Channel and their movies. So next week, it looks like there's a crime at a funeral home, which is definitely going to be interesting. And you see somebody lying in a coffin. I don't know if it's Elsbeth or somebody else, but I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting, because it involves, the employees or the owners of a funeral home and some kind of foul play. So, I'm not a big fan of funeral homes. I don't know many people that are, but it's definitely going to be interesting to kind of see, how everything works, how the process is at funeral homes, and see how there's foul play there. So definitely an interesting episode to me. Like I say, I always like how it ends. It seems like even Elsbeth had her little love connection. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed my review. So until next week, I will see you then. Bye.